All right, so you've heard, kind of his resume and the things in his life that Ed Mylett has achieved and created and distributed. But what a lot of people will realize during the next 60 minutes that we spend together is really what type of man that you are. And we spent some time doing a podcast about 6 months ago, and it was probably my proudest moment of my life.
Wow.
I mean, that's including, winning the Super Bowl and having 5 kids and marrying the woman of my dreams. I've made a lot of right decisions in my life, and I've made a lot of wrong decisions. But achievement-wise and things that when they're lowering me down in the ground that I'm really, really proud of. If there's one thing that if you could erase everything, it would be that piece of content that we created together, because it allowed me to see myself and share myself the way I truly am. Sharing, being sexually abused as a 6th grader. It allowed me to talk about addictions. It allowed me to talk about self-worth issues. And so before we really get into this podcast, Ed, I just want to thank you for
I love you,
the safety that you create for people when they come in here, and just the amount of comfort that you help people, the peace.
Thanks, man.
That's the best way I can explain it, is the peace that you gave me when we sat together, and the peace that I experienced when I listened to other athletes and entertainers and world influencers come on your show, and how much peace, comfort, and safety that you provide inside of your show.
Thank you,
because
man.
people share so much.
Yeah, well, you did it, and I love you, and I fell in love with you that day. And I have to tell you, I've done lots of shows with lots of people, and it was the most commented on show that we've ever had, and it was the great honor for me. I'll be honest with you, your vulnerability on that show saved people's lives. I mean, we've had people message us that you saved their life, and I just want you to know something. I had nothing to do with that. That was all you. But for someone like you who's achieved so much success in their life, you're just a very rare man. I mean, even sitting here now, not too many people are on my show. I feel so puny sitting next to you, right? It's like
that goes back to my self-worth, man. I had to build myself up, so I felt, you know what I mean?
Me too. I thought I had. Then I met you. I'm like, okay, I haven't done anything yet. But honestly, brother, like, that helped so many people, men and women, and people still. I mean, that was probably 30 shows ago. Still, we get comments. Still, we get feedback on it, and so. Like, I'm glad that it was a proud moment of your life, but it was a watershed moment in the lives of, like, literally millions of people, man. What you did on that show. So thank you.
I accept that, man.
Yeah, it's the truth.
It's
the total truth.
All right, let's bless this show real quick.
Okay.
Dear Heavenly Father, please come into this place right now, and please bless Ed's hands, bless his feet, bless his head, bless his mind, bless his tongue, and the conversations that we have today. I pray that they are blessed. I pray that the result of the time that we spend together is exponentially increased by the value that we're able to capture here today, and the people we're able to connect to, and more than connecting to their brain and achieving things, but connecting to their heart and allowing them to see themselves the way that you see them, is perfectly, beautifully, and wonderfully made. And as iron sharpens iron, during the next 60 minutes we have on this podcast, I just pray that you work through us and bless our words, bless our conversations, and guide our direction for where we need to go to reach who we need to reach. And it's in your powerful name that we pray. And bless this man, Ed Mylett. Amen.
Amen. I love you, brother. That's awesome.
I love you, man. Dude, this is so fun to sit here, and it's bringing me back. Like, we're literally sitting in the same place
same
we
exact
were.
spot.
And I don't want to say I hate to keep referencing that show because we're not listening to it right now, but I'm gonna put it in the show notes, and after you guys really should just press pause right now and go listen to that show, and then come back to us, because it's kind of it's like deja vu for me.
I'm
it's
sure.
weird. As soon as I sat in this chair,
I'm sure,
and looked at you, and we're doing this.
I know, we're doing it again. Here we go.
I'm like, I'm definitely gonna share some things I've never shared before today. But it's not about me. Like, this is about the life that you've lived up until this point, the mistakes that you've made, the obstacles that you've encountered, the grace under fire that you've had, the mistakes that you've made that you wish you could take back, and that's what's created this
Yeah, I'm glad.
Beautiful spirit in front of me.
I'm so glad that you opened up with a prayer, by the way, because we're both sinners saved by the grace of God, right? There's not two perfect men sitting here.
That's why we prayed. It's not because we want to preach.
That's true.
It's because I truly want God to work through me today
too.
in this podcast.
Me too.
And
I prayed about it before you got here, but me too, because the fact of the matter is that you and I are two flawed men who are trying to help other people in our lives, and the fact that we've had these experiences, the Lord's favored me with great experiences, good and bad, in my life. All I really want to do is to share those experiences with people. So hopefully we can do that today.
All right, so we're going to start this the same way you started me off, and I'm going to pray for the same result of just like massive impact for people. Talk to me about little Eddie.
Oh boy, that guy! I love him now. I wish I could go back and give him a hug back in the day.
We'll get to the advice that you want to give, Eddie. But take me back to like 16 years old. When was it at that point that you thought athletics was like a future for you?
Well, one good thing that happened when I was 16 years old is I had already started to date at that age. That was actually a good defining age for me because I had started to date who's now my wife, Christiana, at that age. So there were some great things that happened in my life at that age. But I was gonna be a baseball player. My entire identity was wrapped up in being a baseball player, and also like everyone around me, that was my identity too, right? Mm-hmm. And so if you'd have met me then, I think what you would have met would be a really insecure, very shy, very introverted guy, small, comes from a family of alcoholism in his family, so I grew up with just constant anxiety. I think you'd have met a pretty mature guy, by the way, just because I was never a little boy. Mm-hmm. I was never a little boy. My dad's sober now, he's my best friend, but there would be times my dad kind of, I think, maybe knew he was going to go. Mm-hmm. And so he'd say, you take care of your mom and the sisters, you're the man of the house.
Right.
I'm 5 years old. And so my childhood I became a grown-up really early in my life. But I think if you met the 16-year-old version of me, you'd have met a worried, young, shy, introverted, insecure dude who was a good baseball player.
Right.
That's who you probably would have met.
So, and it's crazy. I'm sure people that know you from social media and the content that you put out, they're like, wait a minute. I think Ed Mylett. Ed Mylett just said I was shy. And a lot of people don't realize this about you because you are everywhere all the time.
Yeah.
And you show up. You have a heavy presence on social media. And if people ever go to a chance to go hear you speak, you are the greatest in the world at what you do. And we'll get into all that later. But talk about how you've opened your life up now and where you were at when you were 16, because I experience you now as like, man, like I want to be like that guy.
Thank you,
high energy, high integrity, high honor, high accountability. Even to the fact right now, we budgeted 60 minutes to do this show, and the only reason that we're doing a show at all is because you were accountable to your word, and we made plans like 2 weeks ago, and you've got a lot of family issues that are going on in your life. So when I say accountability, here's a guy, and we're sitting in Laguna Beach right now, and it's
a good view.
This view is unbelievable. The price tag on this house is more than I made during 10 years in the NFL, almost double that.
Right.
And you are how you are. You're so accountable to yourself, but you're so accountable to other people.
Thank you.
You have zero to gain by showing up that way for me.
Thank you.
But you have everything to gain because that's showing me what's possible in regards to accountability and success at the same time.
Yeah.
I can be wildly successful and accountable to the people that I love.
Yeah, that's a big thing for me, by the way, is being accountable. That would be one thing. I think when I was 16 years old, I think if you went back and you met me then, I don't think there'd be anything in my life then that would predict sort of what's taken place. But I think that here's what's great. When you meet somebody now who you think, they got all the answers, like, man, they have self-confidence, they're really good at building self-worth, or they have all these keys. I'm pretty good at those things because I had such an extreme place of lack of it to come from. It's like if I didn't learn tools of how to improve my self-confidence, improve my self-worth, I'm not sure I'd even be alive. Mm-hmm. I mean, like, there were times when I was young, I thought, I don't even know why life is worth it. I've never said that on any show before, by the way.
Tell me more about that. Illustrate more what you mean exactly.
That's interesting. I've never said that out loud, ever. I was already, when I was young, a really insecure, really shy, a lot of anxiety. And the one person in my life when I was a young guy who really just believed in me, that was always there for me, was my grandfather. And then he passed away. And I remember after his passing, really dark place. It's like, you know what? You just die. Mm-hmm. Like, this is all big. You just die. Like, what's the point? I mean, he was such a good man. He's gone. You just die. And I remember thinking, I don't even know if I want to live anymore. I've never said that on a show before. And so I had to get like, okay, I had to find my faith, which I found in my life. That's my salvation. That's where my comfort comes from. That's where my strength comes from. And then on top of that, I had to learn to build these tools where I just like me more. Like me. Like, okay, I know I wasn't born with great size or great speed or great IQ. I have none of those things, but I can develop like great habits. And so I started to just take comfort in, like, honestly, it sounds corny, but like, I'd pray before practice. I'd pray before a game, and I would just feel comfort, like God's got my back. And I love the parable of the sower, where you just keep planting the seeds of your life, right? And the Bible tells us that eventually there's a harvest. If you keep planting the seeds, the birds are going to get some of the seeds. If you know that parable, the wind's going to get some of it. The weather's going to get some of it. But if you keep planting seeds, the Lord eventually provides a harvest. I really believe that in life. So I'd show up earlier. I'd take BP earlier. I'd stay after. I'd do the extra weight training. I'd do all the planting of the seeds. Then when I went into business, I'd make the extra call, do the extra appointment, get there the extra hour early, with the idea that the Lord will provide a harvest for me someday. And so when you see somebody, you always see the after on social media. Like, if this was for both of us, if this was a fitness podcast, this is the after picture looking at you, right? But what's the before?
This is what's possible.
Right. The before with me is like really insecure, really shy, dysfunctional family, C+ type student, kind of an overachiever physically, because I didn't have a ton of gifts. But for me, like, I've had to develop all these tools to just be functional as a human, never mind being a mega achiever.
Did you find yourself because we all established different identities in different seasons of our life.
Yes.
And I have a new identity right now.
I know. I love
you
it.
actually helped me, to uncover that about 6 months ago. But my identity at 16 was so flexible, meaning like, I'm an athlete today, and then tomorrow I'm like, I'm a stoner with these guys.
Yes.
And it's kind of like, you try things on, you try identities on the same way that you and I will like try on shoes. It's like, what feels right for me? When was it that you really hung your hat almost like permanently?
I know exactly what it was.
This is what I am.
The end of my baseball career was actually, everything happens for you, not to you. Everybody says that now. It's a very common thing to say. But the fact of the matter is, if you can experience it in the moment instead of just waiting for hindsight, you'll be a lot happier. Mm-hmm. But here's what it was. All my life, my identity was tied up in what I did. I was a baseball player. I was a businessman. It was in what I did. Once my identity became not tied up in what I did, but who I am, my entire life changed. And so my identity now isn't what I do. It isn't social media. It isn't the speaking. It isn't, my ability to close a sale or make more money. My identity is who I am. My identity is me. My identity is my behaviors. My identity is the caliber of man I'm trying to become. It's not connected to what I do. And you're going to be a really lonely person if all your life your identity is tied up in your career or your reputation or these other things. And I spent years switching identities. Okay, now I'm a baseball player. No, I'm not that. Now I'm a student. No, now I'm a businessman. Now I'm a speaker. And my identity would move to things I did. Those are hollow and shallow identities. Now I think my identity is kind of like who I am. Mm-hmm. I have good intentions. I'm trying to become a better version of myself. God's got my back. I'm saved regardless of what I do. And so my identity is now linked to me, not the behavior or what I do. Because here's the deal. I screw up all the time. I make mistakes all the time. If my identity is tied up all the time in what I do, I'm going to be screwed up because I screw up too much. My identity is now who I am.
At what point during your life did you go from, because you don't do the things that you did in your life at the level that you did them, at the scale that you did them, without becoming almost addicted to your identity? Because you, and I'm only speaking from my own experience, because I haven't reached, $500 million and done a lot of the things that you've done that we talked about in your bio, but that's not who you are. Mm-hmm. Did you find yourself being increasingly more addicted to what your identity was? First question. Mm-hmm. Second, has social media made you second guess constantly, like how you're showing up in the world?
Okay, latter, yes, for sure. Social media has made me
second
second guess.
I have to check myself almost daily.
Me too.
This is not me. I know this is going to get a lot of likes and comments, but this is not me.
Yes, for sure. You just nailed it. So yes, social media is constantly making me question myself. I've literally done posts. I'm like, that's not true. That's not me. Right. I was about to put out, it would sound really good. Man, that's powerful. Completely not me.
Right.
So yes, I do have that issue. I am addicted to my identity. I'm addicted to acting in congruence with who I believe I am. Mm-hmm. So once I move the identity off of like my career into who I am, I'm addicted to, and by the way, it'll happen. So I'll be doing things time to time. It's like, that's not who I am. Like, there's been a couple mornings recently, I had strep throat last week. I slept in later. than I normally get up, right? And it was like, I just got to get up. This isn't me. This is not my identity. Like, I got to act in congruence. The most powerful force in the world is for you to act in congruence with your identity. Your identity is really, truly like the thoughts, beliefs, and concepts you hold true to be about yourself. And so, yeah, I am constantly going back to my identity. My identity is I do it earlier. My identity is I do the extra rep. I make the extra phone call. My identity is I made my word to do our conversation today. I'm going to keep my word. Like, I keep the promises I make to myself. That's who I am. That's what I'm about. That's what I represent. And so the social media stuff calls me out on that all the time. The best posts I have, by the way, are when I'm the most honest. Hey, guys, I'm down today. Mm-hmm. Hey, I screwed up. I've got self-doubt today. These are the posts that resonate most people. They don't want to follow a robot. They want to follow a real person. And the truth is, I'm a man who is flawed, who makes mistakes constantly, and who makes progress. So I progress through my mistakes. One thing that drives me nuts about people is people who repeatedly make the same mistakes over and over again. At least I find a way to make new mistakes. Sure. I find new ways to make mistakes, but I don't typically repeat the same ones over and over again. I'm pretty good about that.
And that, honestly, man, dude, that was so good, because that literally, when you said that, like, I had a download from God. It's rehearsing the curse. Yeah. And because I've been stuck in that pattern of rehearsing the curse because it works for me on paper. Yeah. You know, like hating myself in order to motivate myself, like looking in the mirror, and excuse my language, but looking at myself and hating myself and being like, you're such a pussy, just get it done. Like, you know what I mean? Yes. And like motivating myself, self-talking myself the same ways my coaches would get me to respond to do the work. And I started to acclimate how I'd been coached and mentored, and, you know, not necessarily parenting, because my dad was a wonderful dad, but he was hardcore.
You did talk about that. Yeah.
He was hardcore. So it was about the doing. And so I'm curious to you, because I know how I kind of get back to zero in my life right now is I'm operating on a personal contract. So every thought that I have and every word that I say, I'm very vigilant with myself, and I get back into default mode of, you know, getting back into like being the lion, being the conqueror, being the man, being the alpha. But now I catch myself and I have a contract with myself, and I tell myself every single morning before I brush my teeth, I'm an integrous, honorable, accountable man. And so when I think about, like, to me, what I am and what I want to become, like, I see you in the mirror, and I'm not saying that to make you feel a certain type of way. It is true and it is genuine. Like, you don't do integrity. Nobody can do integrity. You can only be integrity.
That's right.
You know, you can't do honor, Steve. But you can be honorable. Yes. You can be honor. You can be integrity.
That's exactly.
And you can't do accountability.
That's exactly what I mean.
You can be accountable.
By the way, brother, that's a repeat. Someone should just rewind that, because that's exactly what I mean. You just said it more eloquently than me, but when I separated what I was doing from who I am. Once it's who I am integrity, right? I also give myself some credit, man. Like, I intend to do good. Like, I don't always do good, but my intentions are good. I don't think enough people listening to this, like, you don't give yourself enough credit. Like, your intentions are good. You intend to help people. You intend to be a good man or woman.
And that's the foundation. Like, intention. Like, first you must have intention.
Yeah.
But the second step for me, and this is only me personally, and I'm really curious how you do that, is if I know what my intention is, my foundation is solid, how do I make decisions based on that intention? And for me, if I have an idea or something that I want to say, I funnel it through the filter of integrity, honor, and accountability. Yes. And if it comes out of the other side, then you know what? I can use that. But if a person of integrity, a person of honor, and a person of accountability wouldn't do that, then it doesn't make it through the TSA check.
I love how you said,
you know, the TSA check being toxic.
I love how you said you funnel it through that filter, because that's exactly how I do it. It's amazing that you even use those words. For me, I think you're most moved by, like, your childhood and your death. Like, I think these are two extremes that move everybody, right? Much. And so for me, like, when I look at my death someday, and it's really interesting, like, it may sound morbid, but I contemplate when I'm not here. I contemplate my kids when I'm not here, my life, my legacy, the difference I've made in the world. And so when I die, I really believe that as a Christian, my prayers, the Lord says, hey, well done, good and faithful servant. But I have this hallucination. I actually think I'm going to get introduced to the man I could have been. I think I'm going to get introduced to the man I was born to be, my destiny version. I really believe this, right? And I think that guy had the experiences had the integrity, had the moments, the memories, the contribution, the interactions with people that I was destined to have, right? Achievements that I was destined to have. And when I meet him, for me, heaven would be that when we meet, we're identical twins.
Simpatico.
Right. Hell would be I meet this man I could have been, I was born to be, and we're complete strangers. I didn't have the memories. I didn't have the contribution. I didn't make the difference. I didn't have the moments. My kids didn't see those things, and we're complete strangers. So I put everything through the filter, as you said, of does this decision put me closer to that ultimate version of me? Does it put me closer to the man I was born to be? That may sound hokey, but I've actually become addicted to, does it put me closer? Does this decision, this move, this word, this post, this meeting, this way I treat somebody, put me closer to being the man I was destined to be, or remove me from him? Because when I die, I want to be absolute identical twins with that person. And so I just put it up against the best possible version of me, not the version who shows up every single day. And so that's like, I've never heard anybody else say it that way. I put it through the filter of, does it get me closer to that guy?
So the way that you describe it to me seems like a TSA pre-check.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if the person that my dream self,
yes,
like my greatest version, is on the other side of walking through the detectors for TSA, like what habits do you have right now that are not going to make it through TSA? What self-limiting beliefs do you have that aren't going to make it through the TSA check?
Yeah.
What generational curses have you been given? Has Ed Mylett been given? Has Steve Weatherford been given that must be broken to get through the TSA check to arrive at your best self?
Wow.
I'm really curious to you, like what is the TSA pre-check? We know what it stops from getting through, but for me, the words that I choose to base the framework of this TSA pre-check on are integrity, honor, and accountability. And I'm very curious as to if you had to make your TSA pre-check right now, what would your filter be?
Okay, mine's reverse. I know what the two things are typically with me that will keep me.
And it doesn't have to be three.
Yeah.
Just paint that picture.
I'm going to give you the two things that it's interesting for me. I know in my life historically what's kept me getting through that check are two vices or beliefs I have. So it's not the three things I need to do.
I can't wait for this.
To me, it's the two things I avoid. And this is me. This is the weak version of me. Okay, so the version of me I'm ashamed of is my selfish behavior. I'm a selfish person if I'm not connected with the best version of me, and if I'm not connected to God. I'm selfish, and my ego takes over. These are two things that I constantly have to evaluate with myself. One of the things that I'm most proud of is not pride, but proud of, is that one of the nicest things you could say to me is that I have some humility about, and the reason I like to have a measure of humility is because I've lived a life for a long time where I didn't have any, where I was an egomaniac, where I thought I was so great, I produced all these results. The Lord had an amazing way of saying, I'm going to show you that it wasn't you, dumbass, right? I don't think he probably cussed, but he humbles me.
If anybody could do it, it's God.
Right, he could. He humbles me every time I start to think it's me, or I'm special, or I'm gifted, or I'm unique, or I'm smarter. And so my ego, and I mean this, I don't say this, I mean my ego constantly needs to be remained in check. And then me just being selfish, me doing things that make me feel good that don't help other people, me doing things that are great for me in the moment but will hurt me long term. And so I've had to, for me to get through TSA check in my life, there's lots of things that will hold me back. But in my case, the most successful people and happiest people I know, this is what you have. The reason I love you in such an immense way is you're so dadgum self-aware. I love self-aware people. I'm pretty aware of what I'm good at. Man, do I know what I'm not good at. And I can be a selfish dude. I can be selfish with my wife. I can even be selfish with my children. I've been selfish in business. I was selfish in sports. There were times in sports, I can honestly tell you, which is embarrassing, that I would have rather had a good game myself and we lost. This is horrible to admit. There were times when I played where I would have rather had a good game myself and we lost than the team win and me play poorly, which is a horrible thing to admit as a teammate, right? And I remember some of those games happening and me feeling just terrible. And by the way, it never made a good team. It was never the best version of me. And every time I behaved and thought that way, I ended up playing poorly those years or those seasons too. So it's like I'm disgusted that I have to even admit that to you. But there were games, if you just said honestly, you go 4 for 4, what's the great athlete always say? I'd rather go 0 for 4 and we win. They go 4 for 4 and we lose.
That's what A-Rod would say.
That's right. And the truth of the matter is there were games where I'd have rather gone 4 for 4. And it's just a horrible thing to admit as a young man that that's true. And the more I found out that that's not how you win ultimately anyways, and that it actually didn't make me happy, that fact, I thought it in the moment, but it didn't make me happy to see my teammates lose. It didn't. And once I started to get outside of myself and into contributing to other people, into making a difference for other people, my business life, my personal life, my fitness, my faith all turned around where I just moved into service of other people. And I got out of my own damn way. My ego went away. My selfishness went away. But I'm never naive to think that's gone forever. If I let that go, if I'm not constantly looking at that TSA check, right? The thing that'll prevent me from meeting the ultimate version of me, Ed Mylett's version, will be his damn ego and will be his selfish tendencies. That's what will keep me from meeting the ultimate version of me.
It's so funny because I wrote like pages and pages and pages of questions to ask you, and just the things that you're saying, like I already like read that for me.
Your level of self-awareness is extraordinary. Talk about how that's helped you.
Like literally, like thanks for and like you've already done that about 16 times, and the reason that it's like we're laughing about this, like 12-year-old kids that just got off the school bus together, is, dude, I see you, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I see all the amazing stuff in you, but also even when you're putting out a piece of content on Instagram, I can tell when you're talking about the things that like literally like are like plutonium inside you. They just light you up, and you radiate when you talk about them, and I can see it. Yeah. But I see that in myself.
Do you?
And it's so like I'm excited
Yeah.
to be 47 years old.
Yeah.
Since I've met you, because I have so much more to look forward to
That's
than
awesome.
what I thought 4 years ago when I'm retiring. I'm like, oh yeah, I want to become so inspirational and motivational and impactful in people's lives that they forget that I ever played football. Dude, you could have played for 15 years. Nobody would remember that right now. And it's not because of what you've done financially. It's like how you show up.
Thank you, brother.
And the way that you focus out so well to other people that it's like it's an infection.
Yeah.
But in the greatest way. It's like a disease of giving.
Well, by the way, it's what it is, and it's not to interrupt you, but it's like I have to be candid with you. It's almost like a good version of my selfishness. And what I mean by that is I love, since I worked at the group home when I was a little boy, I fell in love, honestly, like I'm in love with like helping people. Like I love people. Like I think that's I think you know that about me. Like it's selfish because it makes me feel good to help other people, right? And I think when you find this is why you're just entering this incredible stage of your life. When you figure out, this is something I would say to everybody, when you figure out what truly fulfills you, and then you match one of God's gifts he gave you with it, you're going to be happy. So for me, I love helping people. And then what happened is I sort of matched one of the 2 or 3 gifts he gave me, which is my ability to transfer energy. I am a pretty good communicator. I've been able to match those gifts, my life experience that he blessed me with. So you match kind of my life experience and maybe some of the couple 3 gifts I have with my purpose. It's like really makes me happy, really fulfills me. And for those of you listening to this, you're going to be fulfilled when you figure out helping people is what really enriches you. It's why you were born. And then you start to identify your gifts. God gave you gifts, and I'm serious, and they're no better or worse than mine. Your gift could be your ability to communicate, your art skills, math skills, your ability to play music, your ability to listen, your concern, your nurturing ability, your intensity, your passion, your kindness, your intentions, your hard work ethic. There's all kinds of things you have. Your physical beauty, right? Your ability to touch people in a certain way. God wired you with 2 or 3 extremely beautiful gifts when you were born, and when you match that with serving other people, man, will you be fulfilled the rest of your life. So it's not work. Like this, people say, man, 2 really successful guys on a Monday sitting out here they could be on this beach right now. I would not want to be anywhere else in the world but sitting here with you.
I promise you, man.
Right? Like honestly, the spinning earth, I'd rather sit here with you, this man, this moment, doing this, because what's happening is we're favoring other people and we're using our giftedness to do it. And by the way, I promise you, listening to this, you do have those gifts. Don't shortchange them because they're different than someone else's. You know, LeBron James has lots of gifts, but one of them is clearly his physical athletic ability, beyond all the other things, right? That might not be yours. Yours could just literally be your compassion for people. You think, well, everyone's compassionate. They all feel empathy for people. No, they don't. That's unique to you. It's special to you. Maybe it's your ability to talk, communicate, work hard, outwork people, see through to solutions and problem solve. There's millions of gifts. If you identify what those are and you use it towards serving people, man, will you be fulfilled.
So it's so I want to highlight that again, because if people weren't hearing every single word that was spoken, he literally laid out like 16 things that could be your gift. And I want to speak to the people that are listening to this that don't feel like Ed rattled off something that could be their gift.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not physical ability. Maybe it's not your IQ. Maybe it's not your marketing ability. Maybe it's not your public speaking ability. And they see people on Instagram like you that crush it in business, and then crush it in public speaking, and then crush it on social media, and then crush it on the podcast, or in my particular situation that crushes it in football, and then goes into media, and then goes into being an entrepreneur. And it may seem from the outside looking in, if I don't do a good enough job of sharing my failures and my tough times, it's easy on social media to look at people and be like, well, they're just good at everything.
Yes.
And so that's one thing that I love about you, is that you do share the failures, and it takes a real man to do that, and I do my best to try to do that as well. But what would you say to people that haven't identified, like, this is my God-given ability, or this is my destiny, or maybe people that lack the vision, or even are doubting whether or not they have any gifts at all?
Yeah.
What is your advice?
My
to them?
first piece of advice is you certainly do have them. I can promise you that. I would pray about it. I mean, this isn't a religious show, but I would pray about it, that those things begin to become
This
revealed
is a religious topic. This is vision, purpose.
Yeah, I got to be honest with you. I would pray about those things. I would ask you that, what are some of the things in your life you've enjoyed doing? What are some of the things that other people have told you over your lifetime, if anyone's pointed those things out? I can tell you that you have a proclivity to, what you do is that your lack of identity, your lack of self-esteem, your lack of self-confidence is blunting your vision to see who you really are. And so that's why we talk about working on your self-confidence, keeping the promises you make yourself. Make sure you change your identity, which we'll talk about in a minute, because we talked about identity earlier, but how do you change it? And when you begin to lift that identity higher, when you begin to get more self-confidence, it will help reveal to you who you really are. You will become more self-aware. It's very difficult to be self-aware when you don't like yourself. It's very difficult to be self-aware when you don't know yourself. And so the more you improve your self-confidence and your identity are the gateway to revealing your giftedness, revealing your purpose to you. And I've had all kinds of failures, and it's through those failures, frankly, like in business, we can talk about whatever ones you want, but all of those failures were literally huge gifts, because they humbled my ego. They made me look at myself, and I made adjustments from those places. And I got to be honest with you, without those setbacks, I wouldn't have the self-confidence that I have now. Had it been easy, had I been rich all my life, I wouldn't have any appreciation for this. Like, I'll tell you really quick one thing. I went so broke when I was an entrepreneur that my wife, we were newlywed. She had to go get a job. She came back 3 days later. I couldn't even pay the bills. I was sleeping in bed, sleeping in, while my wife went out to her job. She comes back into our condo. She goes, "You're not going to believe this. On top of everything else, the car was stolen." I'm like, oh my God, Lord, what are you doing to me right now? I can't even provide for my new wife. The car's gone. 4 hours later, I get a call from Bank of America. It was not stolen. It was repossessed. 3 weeks after that, the power was turned off. 2 days after that, our water was turned off. You can have everything turned off in your life, man. You don't have running water, your life sucks. You can't bathe, you can't cook, nothing. We're 6 months married. We would get up every morning in our apartment, because my house has been foreclosed on. We're living in an apartment. I just want everyone to understand this, because you can come out of this. I owned a home. I was relatively successful. I lost it. I married my high school sweetheart. I was losing everything in my life, water, power, the house, everything. We would then get up in the morning, walk down the stairs of our apartment. We would have to take a shower in the apartment building's pool shower. There was no door on it. I'd hold a towel up. My wife, my new bride, would bathe and brush her teeth as I protected her from people seeing her with a towel as they're walking by going to work in the morning. Who are these two people, this married couple taking a shower? They knew. Everyone knew our water was turned off. Then we'd switch. Her hair would be wet, and she'd hold the towel up for me. And then we'd gather our stuff as everyone's going to work, and I'd walk back up the stairs of my apartment completely ashamed, completely broken, completely depressed as a man. And so I know what it's like, and I can tell you to this day, that ocean that we're looking at is the most beautiful body of water in the world, and I appreciate it. But more often than not, It did not happen today, but it happens most mornings. My gratitude comes when I turn the shower on, dude. This is the truth. And the water comes out and hits me in the face. It's like instant gratitude. Oh, Lord, thank you.
So that's a trigger for you.
Dude,
the water
big
hitting
time
you in the
trigger
face.
is the water coming out of the shower.
So when you take a shower, when the shower water hits your face is a trigger for you. And what does that do? When that trigger hits, because what you just described to me seems literally, I don't think you could be much more opposite than where you're at right now.
Yeah, I know.
I haven't even seen all the bathrooms in your house, but
Yeah.
it's probably more than 10.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you have 10 bathrooms with all running water. Where does that take? I mean, think about that for a minute.
It's an awesome trigger for me. It is exactly that. It's a trigger. Because I kind of figured this out. Like, the smallest thing, if you can find small thing, my mother-in-law taught me this. If you can find super small things to be grateful for, and you can have that trigger earlier in your day, like even like you wake up, how the sheets feel against your skin, or the water hitting your face. For me, it's the water. Literally brush my teeth, water comes out. And I'm not telling you that it's every day like it's some hokey thing, but I bet it's 85% of the days. I acknowledge the water came out of the faucet, right? It's the water out of the shower, and I'm like, thank you, God, I'm so grateful. And because I can be grateful for something that small, it sort of triggers my mind throughout the day to find more and more things that I'm grateful for. Like, even like when you just got here, you could tell.
It
Like,
recalibrates your intention.
Big time.
You're in gratitude, and I want you to pick up right there.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to share my personal trigger reminder.
Yeah.
Is every single morning I lay out my clothes like a little kid because I want to hit the ground and I don't want to think. I just want to go. So I lay my clothes out inside of my closet, and I have, I don't know, a couple hundred pairs of shoes. I love shoes, but I didn't have shoes when I was a kid. My parents used to buy my shoes 2.5 sizes too big and stuff tissue paper in them. As my foot would grow, I would pull the tissue paper out. So my trigger of like how blessed I am and like I'm playing with house money is walking into my shoe closet and seeing all these shoes, getting dressed and walking out and being like, dude, let's win the day. I'm already ahead.
Bro, the way you just said that, I'm stealing it. I'm playing with house money. That's exactly how I feel, but I've never said it that way before. That water hits my face. I'm like, it's exactly right. I'm playing with house money, man. Everything from here is
right.
gravy.
Like, it's like going to the casino with, like, you're in college, $150. And the first hand of blackjack, you make $150.
Yes.
Dude, you're playing with house money.
I
You have
love
$150 of house money. So go out there. Be aggressive.
Yes.
Go out there. Take chances.
Yeah.
And so we were talking about like
Wow.
people being nervous about like finding their gift.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, Ed Mylett, everything he does
Yeah.
is a freaking gift. Are you
Yeah.
kidding me?
Right.
Steve Weatherford, he's crushed it in like 3 different industries.
Yeah.
And I'll share some failures with you, but at the end of the day, like, what makes a champion? You win more than you lose. So how do those people that haven't found their vision or their calling or their gift, how do they find it? Try.
You got
when
it.
you wake up in the morning and you have the mentality of house money,
Yes.
you're going to be a whole lot more aggressive. You're going to take risk.
Yep.
But if you wake up in the morning, as soon as your eyelids go here,
Yep.
you got house money. You got 2 eyes.
Yes.
And you know what? If you only lift up one of them, it's still house money because some people don't even have that.
That's
so it's
right.
just like, it's perspective. You shift your perspective
Yep.
and you capture your
It's
gratitude.
incredible you say that because just 2 weeks ago in these 2 seats, I had a guest on, Jake Olson, who has no eyes.
The long snapper.
Yeah, the long snapper.
I know, dude.
Right?
When you like had put on Instagram story that he was going to be on here, I'm like, Ed, not only are you like a genius for sharing this guy, you're making his life because that's the highlight of his life.
Right.
It's not snapping a ball.
Right.
It's having somebody like you that has literally like tamed the lion of life.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you got the cat by its tail.
Thank you.
And
Thank
you
you.
bring a guy in like that.
Yeah.
And I haven't heard the show yet,
Oh,
but
it's
I'm
awesome.
I'm sure, dude.
He texted me
He walked
today.
out of here seeing.
He did, and he texted me today, and it's funny that you say about being able to see, but like I was talking with him, and he said, "Oh, you've done so much for me." I said, "Jake, you've given me perspective.
Man,
like
you've given you vision.
Yeah, give me
For
big time
what's
vision.
possible.
Yeah, and so what you just said is about trying. It's like, listen, here's the worst standard you could possibly set for yourself is perfection, and people do this all the time. It's their cop out not to do something. I need to do it perfectly. I'm a perfectionist. You're not a perfectionist. That's your shield from taking action. Take action. Screw up. Make
that's
mistakes.
good.
Oh, the worst standard in the world. Nobody I know that is super successful at anything is a perfectionist because it's an impossible standard. They'd never get started. The people that I know that win have developed enough self-confidence that they're willing to look bad as they make their mistakes. All this stuff like, I gotta have self-confidence. There's the ripple effects are unbelievable. My self-confidence level is pretty high now, so I'm willing to look stupid making my mistakes. People with the need to have a perfectionist standard have no self-confidence at all, no self-worth at all, and you'll never get started because it's impossible. You played football. I coach a lot of PGA golfers on their mental game. The average tour player tells me they hit 2 perfect shots a round out of 70. 2 out of 70. You played NFL football. I know you'll attest to this. You had 11 dudes on the field that execute a play. The idea that a play is executed perfectly by all 11 players is almost impossible.
No, it's like a win-loss record. You want to do it. You want to be successful more times than you're not successful.
Right.
Be a 51%, and a 51% can win.
That's exactly right. And the difference in an average NFL game is 3 or 4 plays typically, right? So it's not
3
perfection.
points or less.
Yeah.
71% of NFL games are decided by 3 points or less. 71%. That's 7 out of 10.
Yeah, and I don't know what the statistic is, but somewhere around 100% of lives are going to be determined by 3 or 4% of your life.
Dude, it's 100% the fact.
It's a
because
fact.
I've been blessed enough to be around enough people like you and Andy Frisilla and Lewis House, and I've hugged 4 of our freaking presidents. The last 4 presidents,
That's amazing,
I've hugged them.
man.
Bill Clinton called my cell phone.
That's so awesome, brother.
I mean, I've had the most crazy access to leadership in my life.
Yep.
And it is 100% true. It's just kind of like the subconscious conscious. Like 97% of the actions we make in a day are predicated on our subconscious. They're not conscious choices that we make.
You got it.
So being positive,
You got it.
you got to retrain yourself. And like for guys like you and me, like athletes in life,
Yes.
like we're not athletes anymore, but we're athletes in life.
Yes, that's right.
You know, goal orientation, like what's the game plan? Who are my teammates?
Yep.
How can I support them? And then bang,
we
get
want to
there.
compete. And I will say this to you: one of the 4 former presidents is I've been fortunate enough to get the chance to work with recently, and just at the beginning stages of it, and or at least communicate with regularly. I shouldn't say work with, and I will tell you that one of the things I want everybody to know is the difference between you and the people that you really admire is this 3 or 4%. And it was never more evident to me than when I got to know him. And in some of our conversations, maybe the things that he worries about or that he's insecure about or that he's concerned about or that he'd like to accomplish. And so they're no different. Even the leaders of the free world, even an NFL athlete who's in your situation been the greatest at their position, you know, climbed the top of the sport, then climbed it in his family, then climbed it in his business life, all those things. The difference between them and you is 3 or 4% of the way they think. It's just stacking of that 3 or 4%. They're not perfect. They constantly fight some insecurity. They constantly fight worry and anxiety, and that's part of the battle of life. And that's all the way to these 4 dudes you've been able to hug. It's all of us.
So how to and I've never said this to anybody, and it literally was another download that I just got. And like when I look at you and the way that you're speaking, because I know your backstory and I know, you know, intimate parts of your life that you haven't shared on camera or you know, recorded before. When I think about you, like it's Kevlar confidence. You know, like just the elite level of self-belief that allows you to move as quickly as what you move in the marketplace. You know, in media, on podcasts, you don't spend any time thinking, and it's all action, but it's not reactive action. It's always proactive. You're always in the driver's seat of your life. You were once very insecure. So
time.
how does somebody listen to this, a mom that's listening to this, a dad that's listening to this, a 16-year-old athlete that's listening to this, that has self-doubt sitting in the driver's seat of their life? Like they know where they want to go, and they want to punch in the GPS coordinates, and they've punched them in, but they don't know the turn-by-turn directions in order to go from insecure to Ed Mylett, Kevlar confidence.
And by the way,
give me some GPS coordinates.
So one of the coordinates is, this is corny, but no one does it. It's like you need to begin to start by keeping the promises you make to yourself. So set the
You said that on Lewis when you did it with Lewis House, and it absolutely blew my mind.
It's a fact.
Please continue.
Well, by the way, it's a fact. And so, by the way, set the game up so you win. So start to set up promises that you can keep. It can be as you say, well, there's no correlation. There's a huge correlation. I'm going to wake up at a certain time. I'm going to lay my clothes out so that they're there. I'm going to go to the gym at a certain time. I'm going to eat a certain amount of calories. I'm going to make a certain amount of phone calls. I'm going to get to a certain amount of meetings. And you not only lay the game out so you can keep those promises, when you make them and you keep them, credit yourself. I did it. 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 You start stacking up those promises that you make to yourself, and all of a sudden you begin to become transformed. Self-confidence is self-trust. It's a relationship where you go, you know what? I have a reputation with me, not everybody else. My reputation with me is I do the stuff I say I'm going to do. So when you begin to do that, it transfers over eventually to goals, things you cannot control. It's an invisible force. There's an invisible force in life also called momentum. And when you start to stack up easy wins, you create a momentum. Momentum is an invisible force that takes an average person or an average team and has them perform extraordinary. Perfect example is almost every single sport. Not every year does the best team win. It's the team playing best late in the year, the team with momentum. In hockey, all you hockey fans, you know this darn well. It's the team with the hottest goaltender that almost always wins the Stanley Cup. In the NFL, it's the hottest defense. It's the hottest quarterback. In Major League Baseball, it's the 2 or 3 hottest starting pitchers on the staff, or the bats get hot. It's not always the best that win. It's the people with momentum. And so you have to stack up keeping promises to yourself to get momentum. I'll tell you one more thing. I've worked with some NASCAR drivers. One of the guys we used to sponsor was Carl Edwards. He's not driving anymore. He's one of the top sponsors in the world. And I said, what's the hardest thing about driving? Is it the physical preparation, all this other stuff? He goes, no. Here's the hardest thing about being a NASCAR driver. Everyone, this is going to be a breakthrough for you. It altered my life when he said this. He goes, I want you to imagine going 200 miles an hour and there's a crash up in front of you. You're going 200 miles an hour and all there is this gigantic cloud of smoke, right? He goes, you know what we're trained to do? Drive right into the cloud of smoke. Right through the smoke. And he goes, you don't know what's on the other side of that cloud of smoke. It could be 3 vehicles you're going to hit at 200 miles an hour and kill yourself. But he goes, the tendency is not to drive through the smoke, it's to look at the wall. And he goes, just looking at the wall, believe it or not, as a driver, you drive right into it. Just the look at the wall, you begin to shift right into the wall. We're trained to not look at the wall and drive into the smoke. What most people do in their life, they're afraid to drive through the smoke because they don't know what's on the other side. You start stacking those promises. There's a point in your life where you're like, I'm going through it. And by the way, you've made it such a big deal. Oh my gosh, I don't know what's on the other side. These guys are going to die on the other side of that smoke. You might have a setback in business. Right. And what you do instead is you start looking at the wall of your life. Oh, what if I screw up? What if I? And you end up hitting it all the time. Stop looking over there. Drive through the unknown. And you do that by stacking the promises you make to yourself. I promise you that's the key.
That's so powerful.
It's fact.
I could see it. And that's why you are who you are, because you do that on a stage and you make the most complex, overwhelming portions of getting from where you are to where you want to go. You make it so clear with illustrations like that makes total sense. Like all of the distractions, all of the things that you don't, the bad relationships, the bad decisions, and 99% of the time it's hanging on to the past. Not like what could happen is not always the wall. 9 times out of 10, 99.9% of the time, it's the past.
You got it.
People, and we'll relate this back to the TSA check.
Yeah.
They're bringing the past through that detector. So the Ed Mylett that can change every single person on this planet's life is on the other side of the TSA check. But if you're trying to bring your past forward into the new you, the new possibility of you can't get through.
Yeah, the wall, by the way, what an unbelievable analogy. The wall could be different. Like some people, your wall is you're smoking too much weed.
Yeah.
Your wall is drugs. Your wall is your self-doubt. Your wall is your past, right? But there's the wall you keep looking at. Your wall is you're afraid to embarrass yourself in front of your family, or it's the haters in your life. Man, it takes courage to win. The bottom line is these guys are incredible athletes. They're incredibly well trained, but at the end of the day, they've got brass you-know-whats to drive through that smoke, man, when there could be, you're 200 miles an hour on the other side of the wall. The only way you do that is you got self-confidence. The only way you do that is that you know you're prepared, you've done the most. All you can do is all you can do, and then you got to drive through that smoke, and that's the truth.
So I want to reiterate that because you just made it very simple, by drawing the analogy and really vividly telling the story of driving through the smoke. Like that's where you're going to go. Keep going. Don't look at the wall. But really, I want to hammer home the simplicity of really having a good relationship with yourself, which is going to allow you to do everything else. And that's simple as keeping promises to yourself. And before you can keep promises to yourself, like I think people oftentimes get overwhelmed by what you're doing and what I'm doing and what other people on social media are doing and think they need to be there. Like if they don't get there, then because to me, I could be really overwhelmed with where you're at because you're quite a ways further away than I am. But if I'm focused on my path, because I'm not going to be Ed Mylett. I don't want to be the second best version of Ed Mylett, but I want somebody to chase.
Sure.
And you're a bad dude.
Thank you.
You know what I mean?
I appreciate that.
But
by the way, and you're so right. Andy Frisell and I were talking about this morning, and he's like, the hardest money I've ever made was my first $1 million. He goes, going from $1 million to $2 million, 2 million to 10 million. I'm like, $1 million. The hardest thing I ever did was make my first 50 grand, dude. When I saved my first 50 grand, and that's what most people need to know, the hardest part of your journey is going to be in the beginning. So you're going to get life momentum. Don't worry about getting where I am or where Steve is or $10 million or 1 million followers on social media. Just get to the next place. You should dream it, but you have to get to the next place. I didn't get to my net worth by bam. I got to my net worth by making my first 10 grand and saving it, making 50 grand and saving it. I remember when I first saved $1 million, I was like, I am rich. Like, wow, $1 million. No one in my family's ever had $1 million. Are you crazy? And then it was the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. You don't have to get to here. You get to the next spot.
And it's really simple, Ed, because you and I are abundant driven, and a lot of times abundant means money. But for somebody who, you know what, maybe they're really happy with where they're at right now, but they're not happy with who they are.
You got it.
I think the greatest advice that I can give to anybody, and I've adopted this into my life over the past 2 months and been very, very vigilant with staying accountable to this, and that's 4 a.m.
Yeah.
Buddy, I tell you what, it's changed my life. In 2 months, it has absolutely reshaped the relationship that I have
with yourself,
with my wife and my son, but most importantly, with myself. Because I know if I don't break down and listen to the voice inside of my head that has anything other to do than getting up and driving through the smoke.
You got it.
Then if I could drive through the smoke, the hardest part of my day is getting going, creating my own momentum and driving through this through the smoke. Because you know what? The difference in between that smoke and me getting out of bed is I know what's on the other side of 4 a.m.
You got it. And 4 a.m. is the first promise you keep to yourself every day.
And it's a tough one. But you know what? When I keep that, I have, in 2 months, I put my hand on the Bible. I haven't had a bad day.
I believe you, brother.
I haven't had a bad day. Now, there has been mornings that I have broken that promise to myself, and it just starts my day on the wrong side of the bed.
One thing,
literally.
let's give everybody a gift, like a strategy too, because I get up then as well, and I have days where I don't, but for the most part I do. And one of the things that people ask me all the time, like I talk about my book about morning routine and all this other stuff, and on my podcast, but the second hardest thing I've ever done in terms of getting up in the morning, and by the way, when you first start, this is going to be hard. But I don't.
It's tough.
I don't. Let me say one thing after I get up. I don't check my phone the first 30 minutes. Oh, boy. Like, I'm going to tell you something. Me and Damon John were talking about this from Shark Tank. It's the daggum hardest thing in the world. Most people roll over first thing. And what happens is when you roll over and check your phone, by the way, that's an addiction. Let me explain something to you. The minute you do that, you have decided that you are a reactor and a responder and not a dictator for the rest of your day. So you react and respond your entire day. The first thing that's on that phone is probably an email or a text that's a problem. And so I just put the phone on the other side of the room. I got 30 minutes of prayer, meditation, my stretching, my cold plunge, my gratitude exercise, whatever I do. Then I will get into my life. I dictate my life, not what's in that damn phone. Too many of you, that phone, you are a responder and a reactor. And if you don't think you start your day responding and reacting, okay, and that somehow you're going to turn that around, you're crazy. You've set the dynamic and the context for your entire day with what you do the first 90 seconds you've woken up. And for most of you, you wake up, you're a little bit fuzzy, you probably didn't get up when you said you were going to. First step is what Steve said, get up when you say you're going to. And then the next mistake you make is you grab that phone, and what's on there? Stuff to respond and react to. And now, I'm going to tell you, the people that win in their life do everything they can to control and dictate the terms of their life as best they can. And the people that lose react and respond to other people's wishes, questions, criticisms, you name it. And so I just decided I'm going to stop being a reactor and a responder. My major breakthrough, because I've been getting up early for a while, is that I do not check the phone the first 30 minutes. You want to talk about revolutionizing your life? OMG, dude. Things would be different.
You're further along the process than me, because I know how much my phone influences my anxiety level.
Big time.
My phone influences my mood. My phone influences so many things in my life that I don't have the disciplined maturity to wait 30 minutes and then look at it, because I get out of bed, I go straight to the stairs, and then from the stairs I go to the gym. I give myself 2 hours, and that's why I like to get up that early.
Awesome, brother.
But I mean, I would love to be able to have the discipline and trust myself enough to be able to dip in and out of my phone and not let it affect my mental. But at the maturity level I am right now, in the skin that I'm in,
I love it.
I need to give myself 2 hours, and that's the 2 hours like I know that nobody's really going to need me anyway. Dude, it's from 4 to like 7 p.m.
Beautiful.
or 7 a.m.
Beautiful.
And so I get up, I'm at the stairs at 5, and then get myself 2 hours in the gym. So I check my phone at 7 a.m., which is great for me.
It's way better than me.
Because I'm done.
It's a level.
And I'm already a buzzsaw because I just did the hardest part of my day.
You
It's
got
my training.
You did, yep.
And then all these other problems that I'm encountered because I've kept so many promises to myself.
Yep, and you got
on
momentum.
Probably 7 or 8 or maybe even some mornings, 12 different occasions.
Yep.
I've driven through the smoke.
Yes, and by the way,
I mean?
you've also created momentum to your day by doing the feared or hard things first.
You can control the variables.
Can we
that
talk about this?
influence
This
you.
may be a little bit too technical, but I just want to say one thing to everybody that you wake up worried most days, don't you? And most people say to themselves, that's just weird to me. No, human beings typically wake up worried. And the reason that you did, I'm not going to get into all the details, is it's the alpha or the beta brave wave state you wake up in. It's a worried state. So let me tell you why you're wired to worry. And I just want to cover this really quickly. I just want to make sure that you know it's normal to worry when you wake up, which is why you don't want to give into it. You're let's say there was Joe and Bob back in the caveman days, right? Joe was really worried all the time about the tiger eating him and killing him. Bob wasn't, right? Bob didn't give a crap. 3 days later, a tiger shows up, right? Guess who got eaten by the tiger? Bob did, the person who didn't worry. So we've been genetically programmed in our brains since many, many years ago. The survival people in our lives are the ones who have worried. It's a survival mechanism in your brain that's evolved over time and time and time. So it's natural as a human when you wake up to be in worry. The thing that Steve does that's so brilliant is he immediately goes and moves his body, gets into prayer, gets into gratitude, moves his body, and changes that state. That's why it's so important. Don't check your phone, move your body, pray gratitude. It's not just a habit. It actually changes, it overrides your conditioning as a human being, which is to worry in the morning. You worry more in the morning than you do in the afternoon, just so you know. It's a brain state.
In addition to, this is my morning routine. I'm going to go through it really quickly because I'm curious what yours is 4 a.m., wake up, brush my teeth. I'm downstairs by 4:15, 4:20. I have this app on my phone, and this is not a plug for this company.
Yeah.
It's called Headspace. It's guided meditation.
I have Headspace.
Dude, 10 minutes, and I just do what the guy tells me to do because one of the reasons I lay my clothes out, Ed, is I don't want to have to think.
Me too.
So I lay out, I put my branched chain amino acids. I already mix it up. I have my pills right there. And so if anybody follows on Instagram story, and a lot of people listen to this is you've seen my routine, and it's the same thing every single morning. Guided meditation, 20 minutes of a book. I think I've tagged you, and your book was one of my morning reads, Max Out, which is awesome.
Thank you.
And then I leave, and I get my stairs in, and I get my training in, and then I look at my phone. The only time I touch my phone is for Snapchat, and that is it. I don't look at anybody else's Snapchat. I don't look at my text messages. I Snapchat because I'm sharing my journey because I want people to realize that this is when I earn it.
Yeah, and by the way, that's not a response.
That's the self-care time.
Yeah, our routines are almost identical. I by the way, it's funny, I use Headspace too.
It's so
almost the same thing. The only difference is before I hit my gym, I check my phone on the way there. That's the only alteration. Almost identical.
Yeah. So at least I know I'm on the right path. So I have 2 more questions for you.
Okay.
And the first one is something I'm really curious. What's something that nobody knows about Ed Mylett? And it could be the little Ed Mylett. It could be the superstar, rock star Ed Mylett, or it could be a combination of your journey, your salsa dance to where you're at right now.
There's a lot, but I'll give you one that would probably surprise people. I'm super afraid of going back. I'm super afraid of being broke. I'm super afraid of, I'll say it the right way. I'm afraid that this is a fluke sometimes. This would shock most people. Yeah. So I have a fear that all of this is like a fluke, and everyone's going to figure out I'm not for real. Everyone's going to figure out I fluked it. And now I know it's not a fluke. I've worked on all these tools and resources and things, but there's this when I tell you that I was insecure, the extent of which is inexplicable. So that dude, that insecure guy, I have to keep him at bay. I have to keep working hard. I have to keep working on my routines. I have to keep working on how I think. Because as much as I've run from that guy and I'm running towards who I want to be, this dude's still always behind me. That's the part most people wouldn't know. They'd think, wow, you've moved past that. You don't have fears anymore. You're not afraid anymore. I'm running towards this man I was born to be, but I'm under no illusion I've completely left this other dude in the dust. He's still right there. And when I do get my ego out of control, when I do get selfish, when I do flinch, when I do get weak, when I stop saying and when I stop doing the things I say I'm going to do, he's right here again. I mean, like, he's right there. And so I'm not running from him. I'm running towards the dude I want to be, but that guy is still there. And I think that would surprise most people to know that I have some times where I'm out here, I'm like, I could lose it all. I could go back to that guy again. It's something that I think I've talked about this with Tony Robbins before. I'm like, of all the work you've done on yourself, of all the stuff, do you ever have that? He goes, absolutely, man. That guy's right there. That guy that lived in the apartment where my mom had 5 husbands, right. He's right there. I've asked pastors. I've talked to Rick Warren about it, who wrote The Purpose-Driven Life. Do you ever worry that you could? Yeah, of course I do. So I think what you should know is that I'm never, ever just free of that guy. I want him to be gone. I want him not to be there. But I kind of like that he's there because he does what you said earlier. That dude I used to be holds me accountable to become the man I am now. Mm-hmm. And if I don't have both of them there all the time for me, so I think it's the thing that may not make me look good. It may not be the thing that people think, man, I can eventually get to this place of peace where he's not there. I do live peacefully. I do have that. But that's not to say that this dude's not trying to break my peace. And it's just something biblical. We all have the adversary in our life. Mm-hmm. The adversary's real, man. There's a God in heaven. That's where my strength comes from. That's where my faith comes from. That's where my confidence comes from. But I know there's an adversary, and that guy would like to discourage me. He'd like to give me doubt. The adversary's great weapon that he uses on you in his life is if he can get you discouraged and doubting, he's got you.
What is another name for the devil? The deceiver.
The deceiver.
I mean, and that's the voice that's in your head, that's in my head, the voice that made me vomit before every single pro game.
Yeah.
4 minutes before the game, national anthem gets over, and the manager hands me a bucket because they know it's time for me to purge.
Yeah.
And to me, that was transformative because I'm getting rid of the generational curses, the self-limiting beliefs. And as soon as I vomited, I always played well, and that's why I did it for 10 years.
Yeah.
And I was always curious to ask you. Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that. Yeah. And I think a lot of people will be able to relate to that because no matter what level of success you are, either like the top 50 most wealthy people under 50, a list that you're on, like incredible. Would you think that a person like that would be scared to death to go broke?
Yeah, I know.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like that should really, really hit home for people because I struggle with that too when I was in the NFL. And then even before coming on a podcast like this, like I get rid of that through prayer, meditation, and positive self-talk.
Me
like
too.
I wasn't just using the restroom before we started this podcast. I'm looking in the mirror and I'm speaking to a man of integrity, honor, and accountability, and just reminding myself if I show up in integrity, honor, and accountability, God's going to work in this space, and He's going to bless what I do, and I don't have to be any more than what I am.
Yes.
And when you share things like that, like I feel like it just continues to draw me closer to relatability with you, but it does that for everybody listening.
Yeah, and I told you this off camera, but I should tell your audience this. I think you're the most like me person that I've ever met. I think we're very, very similar. I feel like I'm a little bit further down the road in some places. I mean, I just mean by age.
No,
just
for
time,
sure, yes.
Right? Just by time.
It's experience.
Right? And so I appreciate you say that. And by the way, whether it be a former president of the United States or even I'm watching Brady right now, and he's like, we're still here. And his teammates are repeating to him, you're too old. They're doing this whole thing with him right now. To think that he doesn't leverage that and he's not aware that, hey, Father Time's coming for me. You don't think that Tommy's afraid that his career could be over soon? You don't think he's afraid that he's slipping? Of course he is, but he still works on his habits, his rituals, his self-confidence, keeping the promises he makes to himself. He does all the things we're talking about today. He's a great model of that. But that 6th-round draft pick is still right there, man. Yeah, man. That guy who couldn't be a starter at Michigan as a sophomore and basically as a junior, that dude's still chasing him as he's running after being the greatest of all time. And so he's there for me too. I think I'd surprise people.
So for the people that are like inspired by this podcast, motivated by this podcast, perhaps a little intimidated by this podcast, you are the same. You're sitting in the same exact shoes as Tom Brady, as Ed Mylett, as myself, as other people that have come on this show because they have achieved greatness, but they've done it through overcoming things. And it's always, 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 you spoke about it. It's Like you're in the car, you're in the NASCAR, and you're driving down the road, and there's a wreck ahead of you. Smoke blows up. Do you go to the right? Do you go to the left? Or do you worry about the wall?
Yeah.
No, stay the course, because that voice that's in your head that's telling you you're not enough, that's telling you you'll never do it. You know, all the self-limiting beliefs, the poverty mindset, all of those things. We're in control of that. So really the only person stopping us from being our best self, the TSA pre-check, is ourself.
You got it. And here's what brilliant. I just got to say this because I love when we go back and forth on stuff. I like that I know that guy's there. Let me tell you why.
Have a relationship
right.
with him.
Like I
know
got
him
you
intimately.
I got you, MFer. So when it happens, I'm not deluded. Listen, everybody, and you shouldn't be either. When these insecure thoughts come up, I'm not deluded into thinking that's who I am. I know exactly who the heck it is. It's that joker I used to be, right? So when I see him, like, I know what this is. It's this a-hole trying to come get me right now. It's the adversary trying to discourage me. It's the adversary trying to get me to doubt. And so it's important that I know that guy's there, because these negative thoughts I'm having, these insecurities I'm having, that's not who I am. And it's not who you are. It's this weaker version of you that you're dropping. Just be aware. They're always going to be there to some extent. I don't care if you're a former president, you're the greatest athlete of all time, you're Steve Weatherford, or you're me. We have these thoughts that creep in. We just have the tools, tactics, and strategies, and we're aware of them when they're there to move past them.
Last question.
Okay.
All the things that you've done, all the people you've impacted, all the relationships you've made, all the people you've mentored, businesses built, money made. You're laying on your deathbed. What is Ed Mylett's legacy?
I don't need one. I got asked that before too. I don't need a legacy. I want my Lord and Savior to be proud of me. I want that when I pass and I meet that ultimate version of me, that we're identical twins. And I want my children to feel that they had a loving and caring and kind father, and that my wife feels that way as well. My legacy is, see, there's this story of your life, man. And I figured this out in my late 30s. Most people, if you look at a movie, you watch a movie, at the end of the movie, they run the credits of the movie. And there's like the leading characters, you know, the 3 or 4 leading characters. And then if you watch it long enough, there's all these extras. Cab driver number 2, bouncer number 3. You know, there's like this list of people. And most people spend their entire life obsessing about what cab driver number 2 thinks about them. And for me, I love cab driver number 2. I want to make a difference for cab driver number 2. But my main characters are what matter to me. It's your 5 children, man. It's your beautiful wife. So for me, the world shrinks down. I want to make a complete, total difference in the world. But when I'm gone, you don't need to remember me. When I'm gone, hopefully I've made a big enough difference in the world that I've made some contribution to other people. Then that just stands on its own, and that their legacy will carry on. I'm worried about my main characters, man. I got Max and Bella. I've got my parents. I've got my family. And that's my main cast. I don't sweat what the cab driver number 2s of my life think about. Doesn't mean I don't love cab drivers. I talk to them all the time. Doesn't mean I don't want to help them. It means they are not the main characters in my life. The main characters in my life are these people, and I love them. I want them to be proud of me, but I mainly want the Lord to be proud of me. And I really want, when the Lord says, well done, that he introduces me to this man, and we're identical twins. And I say, hey, man, I've been chasing you all my life. And he goes, I've been watching you, man. You caught me. I've been watching you. I'm proud of you. Great job, right? Ed. So that's what I want in my life. That's my legacy.
That's what makes you great. Like the way that you just simplified your vision. You're so connected. You're so intentional with what you do every day.
You.
And you know what it is. And before we end this, unfortunately,
it's awesome, man. I feel like we just went
like
this
for like 2 hours, but
I
I want you to remain accountable to your family and the appointments you have. But that is stacking promises. Like that's what you've done in your life. You've stacked promises to yourself.
Yeah.
And that's what allows you, when you have a question like that, to just so confidently, without judgment, so confidently speak your intention for your life, for your whole life.
Yeah.
You just summed it up in the most beautiful analogy of I love cab driver number 2.
Yeah.
You know, I love screaming woman number 3.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
I love guy eating yogurt.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you're so clear with it, and the reason in my mind, my hypothesis is you've been stacking promises to yourself longer than any other person that I know.
Thank you.
And that's why you're sitting in the seat that you're sitting in. But I'm thankful for that, man.
You hold me accountable to keeping them.
Yeah. Well,
I
you know what?
need you in my
you
life.
literally proved that by allowing us to create something beautiful that's going to impact.
Today was awesome. It went by too quick. We need to do it again.
So many.
You're coming back on my show, and I'll come back on yours.
Yeah, no, I love you, man, and I'm so thankful for you.
Love you, brother.
You know, for you guys listening, stack promises to yourself. Drive through the smoke, and in order to get to the best version of yourself, you have to pass through the TSA pre-check. So check the past in the past, leave it there, step through the monitor, and meet your greatest self.
Ooh, wow. So
I love you, Ed. Before we go, man,
I love you, man.
I want to acknowledge you for inspiring me, because it's not easy to do. A lot of people motivate me and get me started, but you inspire me like every single day.
Thank you.
It's kind of like the WWJD bracelet. It's like, what's Ed doing? Not what would he do, what is he doing?
Thank you.
And I'm constantly chasing you, and that's allowing me to get to a better version of myself.
That's my privilege. I love you, brother. I love you too, man.
Guys, thank you. Ed Mylett, where can everybody find you? Because I'm telling you what, this was not Ed. Your life is not a fluke, and this show is not a fluke. Please tell them where they can get more.
You just go to Instagram, Ed Mylett, Mylett. You go to edmylett.com, and then I have a YouTube channel, Max Out with Ed Mylett. My podcast is Max Out with Ed Mylett too, so hopefully all those places will help you. They're all free. If you want my book, by the way, go to maxoutbook.com. For your audience, just use the code MAXOUT, and I'll buy the book for them. It's free.
Super kind of you, and that's how Ed shows up in the world. But if you guys love this, I'm going to put it in the show notes, and I want to mention it again. Ed and I really, for lack of a better word, dude, we fell in love about 6 months ago, and it was the greatest thing that I've ever created. And like instantly, because of what was created there and the vulnerability and the connection that, Ed and I became dear friends, and we're going to do a whole lot more things together, and I'm going to find every way that I can to support you and what you're doing. And
they need to go hear you on that show, though.
Yeah, they do. So when you guys get done with this, if you haven't listened to it yet, and if you have listened to it, go listen to it again, because things will make a little bit more sense to you, because I'm constantly evolving. Like, I'm at a season of my life right now that's different than I've ever been before. So it's like it's a new football season, but I'm playing a completely different game.
I love it.
And I'm so thankful to have you as a teammate, brother.
I love you, brother.
All right, Meg. Show notes. Steve Weatherford show's been great, but go check out the Ed Mylett show, edmylett.com, at Ed Mylett on all social media. And if this show really landed for you, I want you to tap the 3 dots that are in the top right of the screen. I want you to copy the link. I want you to text message this to 5 people that need to hear it. And then take a video, put it on Instagram story, tag me and Ed Mylett, and we will be rebroadcasting every single Instagram story that I'm tagged in, and I'm sure Ed will do the same thing, because at the end of the day, we're on an impact mission.
Absolutely.
And there's nobody better for me to learn it from than you.
Thanks, man. My honor. Thank you.